Welcome to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. I'm Jamie Greaves, your host and professional property investor. I'm here to bring you insights, home truths and powerful stories about what really goes on in property investment, business and growing your dream lifestyle. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Warm welcome back to Lifestyle Property. Hello there and welcome to episode 17, which is titled Property School Day. And today we're going back to school, but in a far more engaging and important manner than many of us would have experienced ourselves. So really what I'm going to get stuck into today for you on the back of last week's podcast where I covered myth busting, a really important one for you to listen to, and this is another one. And really we're going to get stuck into all of the key lessons that we should have learned in school. This could be 50,000 podcasts. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to go through the most important lessons today. But obviously, I think the school system is overloaded and somewhat broken, especially when it comes down to finances. And we're not, the truth of it is I can only speak for the UK education system. Like, we're not taught key life skills in school, are we? And a lot of what we learn in school it's irrelevant and it's not helpful. I remember personally learning, home economics, which essentially was putting pizza toppings onto an existing pizza or things like algebra. Okay, so I had to look this up before and to make sure that I didn't get it wrong, but pi being 3.1415. How many times in your life, in your day-to-day life, have you used algebra? Have you used pi? Okay, never. I imagine absolutely never. So why do we learn it when there's way more important things to learn that would benefit us? And there are other things in life that I'm not going to cover, things like, credit cards or pregnancy or this or that, because I'm not going to go off lane. I'm going to talk about the kind of the business property investment side of things, why it's important to learn that. Perhaps I will do credit cards, but yeah, it's really important that we learn these key topics, because I really believe that if all of us are taught this earlier on, we'd be a lot more, we would have freer minds and we'd be a lot more successful in life, but we're just not. So this is what I can do with the podcast. The podcast can be a force for good. So on today's podcast or tonight's podcast, depending on when you listen to this, okay, I'm going to cover some key fundamentals. Okay, and I'm going to have some fun with it because they're somewhat maybe like dry topics, but they're really important to learn, because once we know the game, we can play the game. Okay, and quite often the game is being played and we're not aware of it. I spent 10, 15 years not aware of the game I was playing. Okay, and this is the game that I'm going to go into today. And so I want you to know the game, because once we know it, we can play it. Once we play it, we can win it, and then it's good to win, because then we get to live life on our terms. Okay, so I'm going to get stuck right into it for you. So today on Property School Day, the first fundamental I'm going to cover are, and just the things we're not taught, okay, banks, the banking system. Okay, so what is it, why does it matter, and how can we take advantage of it? Okay. So lesson number one being the banking system. So have you ever wondered how banks make their money? Have you ever wondered why they can afford their amazing luxury, but often empty city centre kind of office suites? You know the type, where the major banks are and they look lovely, but there's very little trade happening there. Okay, or they can sponsor most major global sporting competitions. Where does their wealth come from? Well, some of you will know this, some of you won't, and I did not know this for years upon years, but banks earn their money by investing our money. They make money from our money, okay? So we work hard, and we think, and all we know growing up, certainly in the UK, unless we're taught this taught this by an individual, if you've got a progressive, entrepreneurial, abundant mindset, mother or father or uncle or auntie, then maybe you'll be taught this, but not in school. Okay, so we might put our money into savings, thinking that is a smart thing to do, and when we might get paid, this fluctuates, but maybe say 3%. But what the bank's actually doing is they're investing our money. Okay, so they're investing our money, and they'll always invest our money for a higher rate. Okay, so if they can invest it out for 6%, they might offer us to save with them for 3%, and they make the difference. You've worked hard for the money, okay, and they make money on the back of our hard work. Okay, so your bank has made money from you. My bank made money from me, and we need to learn this, and I'll come on to why it matters. Okay, but before I do that, do you know what's even crazier than that? So banks invest our money, banks make money on our money. Okay. Even crazier is that they don't have your money right now, and they don't have my money right now. Okay, because they lend way more out than what they have. Okay, because they know the game. The banking system knows the game, and they grow their money, they invest their money. Okay, and that is this is the game that we need to understand, because then we can make it work for us and our life and our family. Okay, so how crazy is that? The banks make money on our money, okay, for our hard work, and then they don't even have it in now, because they'll lend much more out. So they'll lend their money out in the form of mortgages, bank loans, various forms of them earning interest, and then actually they're the worst to work with when it comes to rules, and they don't show heart. So if a lendee falls back on their payments, they'll repossess you. They'll take your house from you. They'll take your car from you. They'll take your asset from you. Okay, and then they'll go and sell it off to recoup. So we need to understand this. Now, why does this matter? Okay, why does this matter? Well, my Lord, once we understand the game, then we know how to win. So we want to become our own bank. Okay, I want you to become your own bank. Okay, learn how to get your own great returns. Okay, make yourself wealthy. Make yourself financially independent. Make those around you, your friends and family, wealthier. Grow your money like banks do. Don't just let banks get rich on your hard dollar, on your hard pound or penny. Okay, you don't work all your life just to put it into a bank and then they earn from you. We don't want that. So become your own bank. Learn how to get your own really good returns. Okay, it's really important that we're aware of these things. Okay, so that's lesson number 1. Now, I could do entire podcasts just on the banking system, but I want to go through some of the big kind of fundamentals for you, because once we have an understanding, then we can start to play the game to our benefit. Okay. School lesson number 2 is inflation. Boring, right? Nope. It's really exciting and really important once we understand it. Okay, but inflation, does it really matter, Jamie? Do I really need to learn about inflation? Yes, we bloody well do, okay? It's really, really important, okay? And it's really powerful once we understand this, and we're not taught about inflation in school, and we need to be, okay? So what's the definition? Well, the actual definition is the general increase in prices and the fall in the purchasing value of money. Remember that phrase. Increase in prices, but more importantly, fall in the purchasing value of money. Okay, or in the act of inflating something. So it's our value of a money eroding. That's the definition. Now, why does it matter, and why is it's really, really important? Now, why is it important? Well, firstly, it's important to know that inflation is unavoidable. Governments target inflation. Okay, they want modest, steady inflation, but they want us spending money because that's how they're earning tax through that spend. But actually, so as inflation grows and grows and grows, what's actually happening is it erodes our money, and it erodes the very definition of inflation is it reduces the purchasing value of money. Okay, so in this, it really affects savers. It really does. So it erodes our savings. So if we've got 50k in the bank, for example, what we'll do any 10k, 15k, 100k, our money's shrinking every year. Okay, so every year it's worth less and less because everything else is getting more expensive. Okay, so chocolate, your favorite chocolate bar, think what it was worth, cost 10 years ago. Meals out. I went to Nando's this week with family, and I laughed because it got me thinking about this podcast that I'd be recording this week. I was like, yep, here we go, because it was like double the cost of what it was only maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Like huge inflation. Properties go up in line, often exceeding inflation. Now, what to do and why does it matter? Well, it's really important we understand this because and this is what financially astute individuals do. It's what banks do. It's what we should do as our own bank. Because once we know this, okay, we need to make sure, and it's really important, that our money grows at a faster rate than inflation. Okay, we want our money growth to outstrip, and therefore our purchasing value of our money won't shrink. Okay, it will be maintained. Now, there's lots of ways to do this. Now, naturally, I am biased to property. There's no surprises to that. I'm a property investor, and this is a property investment podcast. But there are other ways of doing this. For example, stocks and shares and bonds and crypto. But we want to invest our money to grow it. And really, as soon as we can get to investing, this is the place to be. Okay, I think property is the best way because we can leverage it through banks, as covered on a previous podcast. Capital growth, cash flow, so many things. Okay, but just know that don't trust banks and don't even trust the government. Become your own self-economy. Okay, become your own bank. Get your money working for you. Okay, and grow your money and look after your own wealth and your retirement and your family and your legacy. Okay, so it's really important to understand the banking system and inflation. Now, I won't get into my political theories of why we're not taught these things, but the government want worker bees, don't they? Think of the income tax. If all of us worked for ourselves and built our own entrepreneurial companies, well, they're not going to earn the kind of income tax that they otherwise would do. So we're just not taught all of these key fundamental things. I'm sure there's other reasons why, but it's not really important why. It's important that we learn the way around it, okay? School lesson number 3 is compound interest. And what is it and why does it matter to us? Well, here there is a quote to end all quotes, really. It's a quote from Albert Einstein. You may have heard it before, but this might be new to you, okay? So Albert Einstein himself was quoted as saying, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. I don't know why he uses he. Clearly, he was quite a male-dominated society back then, because or maybe females are just smarter than men. That's probably the case. But yeah, remember that if we understand it, we earn it, and if we don't, we pay it. Okay, and this is what builds wealth safer than anything else. So in terms of what compound interest is, so this is property school day, so I'm teaching you what these things are. Okay, it's essentially our interest on interest. Okay, so it's interest that we earn on the interest that we've already earned, and what that does is it really accelerates our growth and accelerates our pot. Okay, because we get interest on the whole amount. So just for example, just simple maths, if you got £100,000 and you invested that for a 10% return, and then you got 110,000, but you've then got a bigger pot and you invest that for the same return, it accelerates, and over time, that's what really builds wealth. Okay. So this is why time in the market is more important than timing. So time in, so 2 words, T-I-M in, time as in clock, time in, I-N, is more important than timing the market, because the longer we're in a market for, the better, because of things like compound growth. Okay, compound interest. So it matters because we want to earn it. We don't want to pay it. So we want to grow our pot, grow our wealth through investments. Okay, and compound interest is the safest way to accelerate wealth. Okay, because year upon year upon year, that our wealth builds. We want to make sure that we're outstripping inflation, that we're being our own bank, we're being our own economy. Okay, and this is what will lead to financial freedom and retirement and a legacy for our families. Okay, by understanding things like inflation and the banking system and compound interest. So I really hope this podcast is helping you. Okay, I'm going to keep going in terms of big lessons here. So a 4th one is, I certainly had this. I thought all debt was bad. I thought if you went into debt, that is a bad thing. Okay, but it's not. Debt can be a wonderful thing, but the important point to learn is the difference between bad debt and good debt. Okay, bad debt is things like consumer debt, things that cost us money, or depreciating assets. So things like most cars. I'll take the classic cars can be an investment, but all of the cars, they lose value. It's a depreciating asset. So we don't want to go and use bad debt for that. or bad debt would be consumer debt that we spend on furniture or holidays. Okay, but I thought all debt was bad. Okay, as we think all debt is bad, but it's not. Okay, because the rich and the wealthy and the business owners and those that live life on their terms, okay, they have good debt. And good debt is what pays us income. It pays them cash flow, okay, because that good debt grows their wealth. So even the biggest property investors in the world, even institutions who invest, even I've had a brain freeze, but the Apprentice, Lord Alan Sugar, he uses debt to buy properties because it's good debt. It allows you, it multiplies, it allows them to buy 4 times the value of the property when he's buying these large commercial properties in London. Okay, so we need to understand good debt, and this is why property is so powerful, because of leverage. Okay, what that leverage word really means, it means that a bank's going to give you 3/4 of the money to buy a property. Let's just say that in a different way. They won't give you 3/4 to buy stocks or shares, but they're going to give you 3/4 of the money to buy a property. How fortunate are we? How amazing is that? But we get all the capital growth and we get all the cash flow. Okay, so it's so powerful once we understand good debt. Okay, so not all debt is bad. I thought all debt was bad and all debt was risky. No, bad debt is bad. Bad debt is risky. Good debt is incredibly smart. And then we still want to be safe and professional how we do that, of course. We don't want to over leverage. Don't need to. So this is why it's really wonderful and powerful if we can live within our means, don't compare ourselves to anyone else, and just prioritize good debt and minimize bad debt. Those core lessons there, those core principles, the sooner we adopt these, the better. Okay, so this might well be a podcast to share with children, with your children or nieces or nephews, because when we learn some of these fundamentals, it can just significantly accelerate retirement and financial freedom. Okay. So continuing, I heard in terms of school day, I heard cash flow a lot. Cash flow is so important early on, but I didn't really fully understand it. We're not taught this in school, cash flow. Well, what is it? Well, just to kind of simplify it for you guys, okay? Cash flow is income from your asset or income from your business, okay? Your asset or your business pays you, okay? And it's very important to get. So we need to have a positive cash flow. It's essential, okay? And we get income from our, yes, what it essentially means. Cash flow means income from our investments. We don't want to negatively gear. We don't want to be breaking. We want income from our investments, okay? Really important, okay? Or income from our business. And this is what cash flow is, okay? And then, so another thing that we're not taught is, as we're building our portfolios, so you might be investing in property, and if we don't know this, and we just don't know it, we think it's about our portfolio size. We think it's about how many. So I'm often asked, like, how many properties do I own? And it's not an important question. Okay, that is an ego game. Like, what's important to learn, and this is why I'm going to cover this on school day today for you, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many houses we own. It doesn't matter how many investments we have. What matters is the equity. That's what really matters. So do we know what equity really means? Some of you will, some of you won't. Let's cover it now to make sure that we all do. Okay, and so it's rather simple once we understand it. It's the difference between the market value, so what it's worth, and any lending on it. So let me just give an example. Okay, if I own a house that's worth 400,000, that sounds great. Okay, great. You own a house worth 400,000. Brilliant. Okay, but if I have a mortgage of £350,000 on that house, okay, that's my debt. Okay, then really my equity is only £50,000, and it's the equity that we should be focused on, because that is the wealth builder. We want to build equity. Okay, because there's a big difference, right? If I have a £400,000 house but only a £200,000 mortgage on it, my equity is £200,000. That is £200,000 in terms of self-worth. That is a big difference, isn't it, guys? So once we understand equity, we can make sure that we focus on the most important things. So, for example, in property, once we can learn how to properly add value to properties, okay, that's why BRR to your then chosen strategy is so important, because we can add value to build our equity in there. And that's the real wealth provider, and that reduces our risk. We don't want to be over leveraged. So it's important that we understand what equity is that I've now covered. So it's so valuable to learn the equity, the difference between good and bad debt, what compound interest is. Okay, inflation, why does it matter and why is it important, how to use this? Because we want clarity. Now, once we all understand this, and it is a game, it's a game that banks are playing. Banks will play this game with or without you. Okay, they'll use your money and they'll invest it and they'll outstrip inflation. Okay, they'll also then go and repossess people and do awful things. So become your own bank, guys. Become self-sufficient. Build your own financial force. Build your own financial freedom. Okay, this is way more impactful, isn't it, than algebra? What's more impactful to your life? What's more helpful to growing your life, growing your wealth? Okay, and living life on your terms. Learning the banking system and inflation, or pi, or home economics, or algebra. Okay, so I really hope this little bit left field, a little bit different podcast helps you, because the earlier we know these things, the better. Okay, so again, I really hope this has been valuable. Some big topics covered. Now, if you've got any questions, if some of these topics are big, and I could have done an entire podcast on compound interest, an entire podcast on the banking system, an entire podcast on inflation. So if ever you have any questions about anything I cover on the podcast, just reach out to me. I'm a man, I'm not a robot. I record these live in the month that they go out. I'm doing this to help you. Okay, so reach out. I have my social connections on I think on the notes section of the podcast, wherever you listen, Apple, Spotify, elsewhere. You'll have my Facebook and my Insta, my website. Reach out, ask me any questions. If I can help you, I will, because once we get rid of the overwhelm and we have clarity, then we can go on and do amazing, amazing things. Okay, so I hope that's really helped you. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave us a review so we can reach and help more people. I'll also be giving one person who leaves a review a free family holiday to one of our luxury holiday lets. Thank you, and see you next time.